Over to Doug Polk. This is where things get dicey. All right, get your helmets on, all right? This is where we're not exactly sure what Doug Polk's supposed to do. Hello, everyone. I'm Jonathan Little for PokerCoaching.com, and here we have another hand from the 200-400 Cadillac of Poker battle between Doug Polk and Daniel Negreanu. This is an interesting hand where, from Doug Polk's point of view, I would have screwed this hand up all sorts of ways. So let's take a look at it. Doug Polk does raise it up with a 9-8 suited, which is perfectly fine and standard. Negreanu 3-bets the pocket aces. It's always nice when you get aces heads up. And Doug Polk calls. Very standard so far. Even I would have played this hand, right? If you want to make sure that you do not screw up pre-flop, make sure you check out our free downloadable heads up GTO charts at pokercoaching.com/HUNL. Don't mess up when it's really easy. So far, you all should have gotten this right. All right, flop comes 10, 9, 5. And Daniel Negreanu opts to go for a 2/3 pot bet. If you've watched many of the previous videos I've done covering this heads-up feud, you will know that when Negreanu 3-bets pre-flop, he very often bets 20% pot. And for the most part, that is the right strategy. In the early parts of this heads-up feud, he was using 20% pot all the time, and that's not actually all that bad. But we see here that the GTO strategy is actually to bet using a bigger bet size when you do bet on this board. It turns out 10, 9, 5, and boards where it is very connected in general, like Jack 10x, 10 9x, 10 8x, etc. These boards are boards you want to be betting less frequently, but when you do bet, you want to be betting on using a larger size. And we see here that Negreanu should be betting using a 2/3 pot bet the majority of the time when he is betting, right? But he should also be mixing in a whole lot of checks. And we do see that pocket aces, in particular, really likes the 2/3 pot bet. Okay? So far, so good. Nice and standard, easy poker. If you like nice, standard, easy poker, and if you like my videos here, do me a favor, click the like and subscribe buttons below. There's also a notification bell so that you will be notified whenever I upload a new video here on YouTube for you. I do my best to upload lots and lots of free content for you almost every day here at YouTube. So if you enjoy it, show me some love. All right. In this scenario, Doug Polk has pretty trivially easy call. You will find that a general pattern that occurs is when your opponent uses a polarized bet size, like 2/3 pot, in a scenario where they could opt to use a smaller size, it usually indicates they're betting with a range of usually their usually their best hands and their draws. And we see here, Negreanu's betting range in this scenario on 10-9x is going to be a whole lot of 10s, a whole lot of overpairs, right? Some 9s, but not really many 9s, right? He's doing a whole lot of checking with his marginal hands. You see the 9s and the 5s often opting to check. And then he's betting with a whole lot of draws or drawy type hands like King-Queen, King-Jack, Queen-Jack, probably Jack-8, right? Jack-7, probably Queen-8, right? Yeah. Also these ace-X's with backdoor draws. So you see that Negreanu's betting range here is either going to be a really good hand or a really drawy type hand. And against that range, you don't want to do a whole lot of raising. And we see here, Doug Polk's strategy is a very clear call or fold strategy. He basically has no raises. And that is what Doug Polk does. You may say, don't you want to raise with stuff like 10-9 to try to price out your opponent's draws? And the answer is no, you don't. Whenever you do have a really good hand like 10-9, heads up, you're just not all that concerned with getting outdrawn, because yeah, sometimes you get outdrawn, but if you have a hand like 10-9 or pocket 5s, you just have the super nuts and you are fine continuing in this pot. All right, turn to 5 of hearts. This is a situation where when Negreanu takes this polarized betting line on the flop, he's often going to continue betting very polarized on the turn, usually with his best hands that don't mind protection and some draws. Does pocket aces fit in that category? Well, Negreanu thinks it does. Notice he does use a 2/3 pot bet, often, well, again, continuing to represent this polarized strategy. And Negreanu's turn strategy has pocket aces, mixing it up somewhere between 120% pot bet, an overbet, or a 2/3 pot bet. Notice a 20% pot bet is basically never used because, again, the 20% pot bet's often used when you're betting almost your entire range. And in the scenario, Daniel Negreanu is not betting anywhere near his entire range here. We see him checking some of the ace highs, right? Checking the 9s that he has, even checking some of the weaker 10s that he has, right? So he's really just betting something like king 10 or queen 10 and better in this scenario for the most part, plus draws. Remember, stuff like jack 8 is still betting very frequently. If we look at queen jack, yeah, queen jack's still betting, king jack, king queen, all these hands are still betting. Also, some of these hands down here, ace x with backdoor draw, these are going to be a lot of nut flush type hands. So, so far so good. I think all of us would have gotten this play right so far. Over to Doug Polk. This is where things get dicey. All right, get your helmets on, all right? This is where we're not exactly sure what Doug Polk's supposed to do. What I want you to do is I want you to take a second and ask yourself, in Doug's shoes right here, not knowing Negreanu has pocket aces, remember, Doug Polk cannot see down Negreanu's cards. Should he fold, call, raise small to like 25,000, or go all in? I realize 25,000 is not a legal bet. Come on, don't be a rules lawyer. Nobody likes that. 25,000 and change. Which one should he do? What I want you to do is I want you to pause the video and type it in the comment below and really commit to an answer. And then I'm going to tell you in a second if you're right or wrong. That way you can improve your skills. So go ahead, pause the video. All right, did you do it? Do you have your helmets on? Are you ready for turbulence? This is a situation where if I was in Doug Polk's shoes, I would have called every time, which is what he does. But let's go over here and look at what the solver does. The solver, with 9-8 suited, folds the majority of the time. And it turns out the only time it does call is when it has 9-8 of hearts for the backdoor flush draw. 9-8 of spades and clubs both opt to fold. You can see that here with the 9-8 offsuit also entirely folds. What? I'm pretty surprised to see this, but it turns out when your opponent does use this polarized betting size in a 3-bet pot on the flop and on the turn, well, going back to the range that Negreanu quote-unquote should have if he's playing GTO, it's just all a whole lot of overpairs and a whole lot of 10s, right, for value, and then a whole lot of draws that have equity. And it turns out, against that range, your hands like 9-8, 9-7, 9-6, fold. Take your cards and muck them. I tried to grab some cards and they fell off the table. I know you can tell by the wildly high quality of the production value here that this is a high quality show. And due to the high quality, I'm sure you'd presume that YouTube pays me to be here. But if that's your assumption, you would be wrong. I'm actually paid by an outside source. It's about 2 feet beyond this camera right here. So if you like this show, do me a favor, check out pokercoaching.com/free. There we have free access to my training site, pokercoaching.com. Go there, check it out. If you sign up, we have a 100% money back guarantee because if I do not help you get good at poker, I do not want or deserve your money. So check it out, pokercoaching.com/free. Anyway, here, 9-8 has an easy fold. We see the 9s with an overcard do not fold, though, because those have a better chance to improve, plus they just could be good if Negreanu is going for a thinnish bet. Notice, though, Negreanu is really not going for all that many thin bets, right? Like, we see King 9 is only sporadically betting, and Ace 9 is only sporadically betting, which is why you see a lot of these weaker 9s for Doug Polk just opting to fold. Doug Polk actually said in a post-game interview that he was considering calling or folding in this spot, mixing it up, but we see GTO Solver recommends straight folds. The only time you could really consider calling in this spot from an exploitative point of view is if you think Negreanu's range is way too bluff heavy or if you think he's value betting way too thinly. Negreanu does not seem to be the type that value bets thinly, but he could be a little bit bluff heavy. Old man does get caught speeding every once in a while, so I don't fault Doug Polk for calling. I would have called here, but it turns out this is just a fold. Wow. All right, river is the 10 of clubs. This card is awful for Dale Negreanu. Why? Because, let's go back to Doug Polk's strategy. Doug Polk's strategy on the turn is to continue with a whole lot of 10s, right? Take a look at this. Almost all the 10s continue. Funny enough, notice 10-8, 10-7, 10-6 actually fold a lot on the turn. Turns out you really want to have that overcard in this scenario when you do continue, so Doug Polk really does have to fold a lot on the turn here. But as we see, he has all these 10s, right? And if we look at Negreanu's turn betting strategy, he doesn't really have all the 10s. He's opting to check a lot of his 10s, right? So in this scenario, on the river, Dale Negreanu doesn't actually have a whole lot of 10s. Here's Negreanu's river strategy, and we see he should be checking his entire range. Another pretty shocking spot. A lot of people look at aces, heads up, and think, all right, just triple off with the aces, no problem, because aces are great. And aces normally are great. But it turns out, when the river is awful for your range, you have to check basically everything. This is a spot where Negreanu's equity went from being pretty high to something like, if I recall correctly, 42% on the river, which is really low. And whenever your equity is really low, you just have to check everything. And if you do check here, of course you opt to call it off, right? You're not checking and folding with the aces, but you don't want to bet, because when you bet, your opponent will presumably only call with mostly hands that beat you, which are going to be a whole lot of 10s and a whole lot of 5s. But Negreanu does go for a 40% pot bet. This makes sense from a straight logical point of view, right? You're going for a thin-ish value bet using a small sizing, which normally is a reasonable play from the GTO point of view when you don't have a big equity disadvantage. But here, perhaps Negreanu did not correctly realize that he actually does have a very big equity disadvantage, and instead he should have checked everything. So he does go for the small bet. And around to Doug Polk again. This is another spot where I would have called. Why would I have called? Because a whole lot of draws miss, right? So I, again, need the helmet on because we are going to be expecting turbulence, and I would have called just like Doug Polk did and lost in the hand. But let's take a look at what the GTO solver recommends here. Very bizarre scenario. Definitely a bizarre scenario. Not even sure if we are looking at the solver appropriately in this spot, because who knows exactly what Negreanu's river strategy is. But we see here in this scenario, given the assumptions I made, that Doug Polk should actually use this 9 as a bluff and bluff it all in some portion of the time. Take a look at other bluffs that the solver opts to use. We have 9-8. We have pocket 8s opts to bluff. We have 8-7 opts to bluff. 9-7, 9-6 sometimes. 8-6, right? All these 5s are full houses, which are really good. All these 10s are full houses, which are really good. Also sporadic, Jack 8, King Queen, Queen Jack. Really, all of the potential bluff hands opt to bluff some portion of the time. You may also be surprised to see here that some of the 5s don't shove all in. They opt to just call. But that's because Negreanu's betting range, in theory, if he is betting here, probably should be a whole lot of 10s, so you can't just raise every single 5 every time. You have to be a little bit cautious. But this is a spot where, because Doug Polk's equity is so high on this river, because he has so many 10s in his range, he actually should work really, really hard to find bluffs. And it turns out very often the best bluffs in the scenario are hands that block full houses. So mainly hands containing a 9 become at least a consideration. You see, not all of them are bluffing, right? We see the ace 9, king 9, queen 9, jack 9 still call. And even some of the weaker 9s call when you have them. But these hands opt to bluff sometimes, and then just the hands that have low equity that cannot win opt to bluff sometimes as well. So this is a spot where I would have played this hand exactly as Doug Polk played it. I would have called the 3-bet pre-flop, I would have called the flop, I would have called the turn, I would have cried and called the river, I would have lost, and probably not even thought that much of this hand. I would have thought it's pretty standard. But turns out it's not. Doug Polk should have actually just folded the turn, assuming Negreanu's playing the GTO strategy. And then on the river, it's probably a bluff, raise, all in, some large chunk of the time. And that's bizarre. GTO poker's hard. Expect turbulence. Sometimes it is like beating your head against the wall, and that is A-okay. Get in there, study, work hard, and continue improving your skills. Hope you all have a great, great day. Thanks for being here. Again, if you like this video, do me a favor and click the like, subscribe, and notification bells below. Good luck in your games. Have a great week, and I will talk to you next time. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want more strategy lessons, pre-flop charts, and interactive quizzes, make sure you get your free membership to pokercoaching.com right now at pokercoaching.com/free. I'll talk to you next time.